What is going on, guys? Carter here with Edge Mindset. We've got a yappy, fantastic video today. I haven't done one of these in a while where I kind of ramble about some topics. I build the thoughts in my head real time. I know it can be frustrating for some people, but man, I love doing it. So I hope you enjoy listening and participating if you can. So a couple topics of this video. One is I want to give a shout out to Microtech for being crazy amazing. Now, love them or hate them, you have to admit that their marketing tactics, how they have stayed so relevant, is impressive. It's got to be impressive. This is a legacy brand, right? And by legacy, I mean kind of that big explosion that happened in the 2000s, whatever you call that, like the 2010 to 2015. You have the CRK really blew up, Hinderer, Strider, Microtech, some of these brands, right, that really kind of defined the next generation of knives. It was a pretty big deal. Whether you realize it or not, it was a very big deal during that time, and I'm glad to have been a part of it, at least participating in content, things like that. But they, in my opinion, a lot of those brands are still relevant, but Microtech is more than relevant. It's continuing to move forward, grow, expand, and I think this move with this next generation of knives that they've done is the biggest and most important thing they've done in a long time in terms of staying relevant and continuing to participate in the market. They're also just amazing at, throttling the special editions, the limited editions, right? They're really good at making sure to keep interest intact in their brand. And right when they start to push things a little too far, do too many special editions, do too many weird releases, they take the foot off the gas just enough for people to get some breath, and then they do some more. The fact that they're able to move the units that they're moving, get conversation and interest the way that they are, with relatively, they've done a good job at expanding the knives that they do. They do manual knives, they do side opening, they do OTF knives. But still, it's kind of limited. Like what they're able to do with this OTF platform, which is very limiting. There's not that much you can do with this style of knife. You got a rectangle handle, and then you got a pointy blade that comes out. The fact that they're able to do as many models and special editions and things like that is very impressive. But so there's that shout out. But the main point of this video is I want to talk about these new kind of the facelift to these knives, what they've done here, why it is so important. And then I also want to discuss some of the rumors that are going around, some of the assumptions on these knives. Sorry, my hands are like sweaty. It's part of the reason I wear gloves. A lot of people give me crap for wearing gloves. Those kind of reasons is why. It's not because I'm scared to touch my knives. It's because stuff like that happens, and it's distracting and a little bit gross when you've got all these lights kind of illuminating everything. Things like that pop up, and I imagine it's pretty distracting to have my sweaty coffee fingers leaving residue all over my knives. Anyways, see what I'm talking about? Total squirrel ADHD moment. That's what you get here when you talk to me. Let's say why, let's jump into why these are more relevant. And then I'll get to kind of some of the speculation around how they're able to offer these at a lower cost and what exactly they're doing here. Lots of comments about are they outsourced in China and things like that. But first, let's just say, why is this so important? Microtech has addressed some of the biggest critiques with their knives from a high level in a very strong way. First off, they've increased the action of the knife. Right, they've improved that action. One of the big complaints is they're hard to deploy, they're hard to retract. Other knives are smoother, other knives are better. They've addressed that, and they have created arguably the smoothest, easiest to deploy OTF knives I've ever felt. Now, I know there are some other ones out there that are doing a similar thing, like the Kershaw Livewire, which I still have to get my hands on. If somebody could send me one of those to check out, that would be awesome. I almost bought one a while ago, and I just never did. I think it's using a similar internal mechanism. I would like to do a comparison. That would be pretty cool. But they addressed those concerns. They made these knives so much easier to deploy, so much smoother. It is just such a treat because, I don't know, until you try one, you really can't wrap your head around it, but it's just so easy and smooth, and it just has a cool feeling, but then it fires so hard. And they did that by changing to a longer two-spring system. The internals, in my opinion, are also finished way better, smoother. It looks like they put more attention into the carriage. Everything seems to be better done inside when I do the comparison of the internals. But the biggest thing is on the outside. They've really kind of taken their aggressive, kind of tactical look that they've had for a long time, kind of that special operator, sharp edges, that kind of thing, which I like. I like that stuff. But, you know, times are a-changin'. They've taken that and they've created a much softer, sleeker look. They got rid of the glass breaker that everybody would talk about, how obnoxious it looked and how uncomfortable it was if you wanted to put your thumb on there. They kept the concept. There's still a glass breaker, but it is very subdued, very simple, very clean. Along with this titanium pocket clip, they've upgraded the materials to appeal to more people. They've overall just kind of made this a much more modern looking knife that fits in with what some of the competition is doing. And, you know, to a certain degree, I think Microtech's hand was not quite forced, but it was nudged, right? There's a lot more competition in the OTF market now, US companies and overseas companies. The reason for that is legal things have started to change. These are legal in more places than they used to be, so there's more interest in them, more companies are producing them, and so Microtech has more competition. And they know to stay relevant, they've got to address that competition, and I feel that's the primary driver for these changes, is to address that competition. Falling in line with that is the price point, right? So that's where some of the rumors come in. People are very confused on how they can take a new combat Trudon with the same steel, same body material, upgraded to titanium, upgraded the internals, and yet it's almost $100 cheaper than the previous model. In my opinion, this is just conjecture here, just me kind of off the top of my head. The official story from Microtech is that they found a new manufacturing technique that allows them to do it cheaper. I don't think that's true. I don't think they're doing this cheaper. I think it's purely a business decision. They are lowering the margins on these knives for two reasons, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. Two reasons. One is the aforementioned, there's more competition, so they've got to stay relevant, right? If other US companies are offering these OTS for cheaper, like the Hogue line of the Counter-Strike, which I featured on this channel, is a great budget OTF, as well as Kershaw, all these other companies, and Axial, the Axial Shift. In order to compete with that, they've got to compete price-wise. And so from a business standpoint, I think it makes sense. The other thing is, because of the legality changes, the popularity, more people are buying these, which means they can actually lower their margins on each unit, right? In the past, Microtech was still very niche-oriented. There was less people that could buy these knives, and so they had to increase the margin on each knife in order to turn the profit that they needed to turn in order to keep growing and hire people and blah, blah, blah. If they're able to move more units, they can lower those margins. They can make less money on each knife because they're selling more of them. So if they were making, I don't know, $200 per knife before, but they were only selling 50, now they can sell 100, so they can reduce their margins to $100 profit on each knife. Those are made up figures, obviously, but that's the concept. That's what I'm thinking anyways. I don't think these are made in China. I think people were kind of taken aback because of how quickly these came out, and all of a sudden they've got these new ones in and they're cheaper. All they did was allocate some of their production line to these new knives. I mean, it's not that weird, right? They crank out a lot of knives. They have been. They've got a big production capacity in the knife world. And all they did was just allocate some of that to these new models. I don't think it's anything crazy. And I also have a feeling that they are trying to push these out towards the end of the year, probably for balance sheet reasons, you know, just pure business, right? Maybe they've got some depreciation on some assets that they purchased, and they've got to show realization of profit on those. And so they're scrambling to try to move as many of these units at the end of the year so they can close out the year. I don't know. I'm not a big business guy, but I know those things come into play, right? It is a business, and they've got to sell items and make their sheets look good for investors or whatever they have going on. I don't know. So that's my thinking as to why some of these changes took place. But like I said, I think this is a phenomenal game-changing for Microtech, right? I don't mean necessarily knife world game-changing, but for Microtech, this is a huge, huge step in the right direction. And I think it's a very smart business move making these changes. Because for as many people that are grumbling that they don't like the changes and they don't like the way these look, which there's plenty of people doing that, I think they're gaining 10x in new customers because of these modifications. I've heard it firsthand online. People that haven't really looked at Microtech are now looking at these and saying, well, maybe I want to take another look at Microtech. I like what's going on here. I like these changes. I like the new look of this. So I think they're going to gain a lot more customers with this move than they could ever possibly lose. But those are just my opinions. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Am I off base? Am I close? Let me know. I'll talk to you guys later.